At the age of 7, the beautiful aunt my father brought home gave me a box of mangoes. That day, my mother watched me eagerly devouring the mangoes, signed her name on the divorce agreement, and jumped to her death. From then on, mangoes became the nightmare of my life. Therefore, on our wedding day, I said to my husband Ethan, "If you want a divorce, just give me a mango." My husband held me without speaking, but from then on, mangoes also became his taboo. On Christmas Eve in the 5th year of our marriage, my husband's childhood sweetheart placed a mango on his desk. That day, my husband announced he was cutting ties with his childhood friend Rena and fired her from the company. That day, I felt he was the man destined for me. Until 6 months later, when I returned from overseas negotiations with a cooperation deal worth $10 billion. At the celebration banquet, my husband handed me a drink. After drinking half of it, his childhood sweetheart, the woman who had been driven out of the company, stood behind me and asked with a grin, "Does the mango juice taste good?" I looked at my husband Ethan in disbelief, but he was holding back laughter. "Don't be angry, Rena insisted on playing a joke on you with me. I didn't give you a mango to eat, just a bottle of mango juice. However, I think Rena is right, your aversion to mangoes is just a quirk. Look how happily you were drinking it just now." With a cold face, I raised my hand and splashed the remaining mango juice on the man's face, then turned and left. Some things are never jokes. Mangoes aren't, and my desire for divorce isn't either. Miss Lydia, you have a recurrence of stomach illness due to stress stimulation. In the future, absolutely do not eat things you dislike, otherwise next time it might not just be stomach pain, but require gastrectomy. Stay in the hospital for observation for 1 day, and notify your family as soon as possible. Hearing the doctor's words, I fell into silence. For the new project, I worked tirelessly abroad for 39 days and returned safely. Unexpectedly, Ethan's cup of mango juice at the celebration banquet directly sent me to the hospital. Subconsciously, I opened the pinned Facebook chat, typed 2 words, and noticed something was off. Upon closer inspection, it was indeed Ethan. But he had changed his profile picture to a green mango. Just as I was staring blankly at the chat box, Ethan's call came in. On the phone, the man's voice was icy. "I'm already home, where are you?" I remained silent. In the past, I would soften my temper and act like a little girl to coquettishly plead with him. But tonight, I didn't know how to speak. Ethan was somewhat annoyed. "Lydia, how long are you going to make a fuss?" "Hospital." Ethan fell silent. He had never cared about my health. He wouldn't have thought that his cup of mango juice directly sent me to the hospital. "Wait for me at the hospital, I'll come right away." I didn't want to deal with him, but my physical weakness made me unwilling to move anymore. Time passed bit by bit. The doctor came to check 3 times, but Ethan never appeared. Before falling asleep, when I last checked my phone, I scrolled to Rena's Facebook post, "Every time I'm injured, my superhero appears on auspicious clouds, so wonderful." The accompanying image was a photo of Ethan applying a band-aid to her. Rena's profile picture was a yellow mango, beautiful yet nauseating to me. Having known each other for 10 years, Ethan had always known my boundaries. Experienced in business, he also always knew how to interact with other women. But now, he was crossing the line repeatedly. Then, the thread connecting our marriage, along with the latest project I negotiated, that cooperation deal with Western Europe worth $10 billion, which determines the company's life and death, there was no need for it to exist anymore. The next day when I woke up, Ethan hadn't sent a single message or made a call. I wasn't angry either. After the re-examination showed no issues, I went straight home. The 500 square meter luxury villa was fully paid for by Ethan and me last year. 7 years ago after graduation, we squeezed into a basement sharing a bowl of instant noodles. 5 years ago when we got married, we ate at a street food stall and bought a 4-inch small cake on the way home. Now, I could only lick my wounds alone in the empty villa. I thought I would get used to it in the future. Just as I was studying the divorce agreement sent by the lawyer, Ethan came home. Accompanying him through the door was a strong scent of rose perfume. I was slightly stunned by the smell. Ethan's skin is delicate and sensitive, allergic to many cosmetics, he hates perfume the most. Because of this, in the years we've been together, I never used any skincare products, even carefully selecting shampoo. Now it seems he was only strict with me. The man saw me lying on the sofa with a tablet and was slightly stunned. Last night Rena was too happy at the celebration banquet, got drunk and fell, so I sent her home first. Later, because it was too late and the road was far, I casually found a nearby hotel to stay in and didn't go to the hospital to pick you up. I nodded, cancelled another cooperation order on the tablet, and casually replied, got it. Ethan opened his mouth, somewhat stuck, as if my reaction was not what he expected. He hesitated for a moment, took 2 steps closer, lowered his eyes and said, "Today is Saturday, don't worry about work anymore. I'm planning to take Rena to Paris for a trip, do you want to join?" On my birthday 7 years ago, Ethan and I took a 5 yuan photo at the night market. Looking at the cheap Eiffel Tower background in the photo, he swore that when we had money in the future, he would definitely take me to Paris to take an identical photo under the real Eiffel Tower. Later, our house got bigger and bigger, the company's business became more prosperous, but he got busier and busier, coaxing me more than once, "Lydia, now is the critical period for the company's development. As the leader of the company, how can I casually take a vacation and run abroad? You're the most sensible, you must understand me, right?" I understood, so I no longer mentioned Paris and devoted myself fully to the company's business, contributing to his career. But it turns out that as long as Rena wanted to go, he had time. Opening the next client email, I said in an unchanged tone, "A trio is too crowded, I'm not interested." After hearing this, for some reason, he seemed to breathe a sigh of relief before continuing, "Okay, I'll grab something and leave. Handle lunch yourself, we'll eat dinner together. Also, this cooperation is crucial for the company to open up overseas markets. I've invited the media for a press conference next Monday. Haven't you always wanted to stand openly by my side? Next Monday is the opportunity, prepare yourself." After saying that, he paused again, looking at me seriously, "Rest assured, this time I'll properly introduce you and not let Rena cause trouble." I faintly raised my head and glanced at him. I knew in my heart that this was his compensation for last night's incident. But it's fine, cancelling the Western Europe cooperation would take a few days of procedures. Announcing it on the day of the press conference would be good. In the evening, as usual, I arrived early at the restaurant to wait. In our 7 years together, this had almost become my habit. While waiting, I received a call from overseas. It was from the counterpart in the last negotiation, who was also my senior brother. My senior brother spoke in a gentle tone, laughing, "Lydia, how have you considered my last proposal for you to join DM? Jiang Corporation is still too small, it doesn't match your talent." This was the 3rd time he tried to poach me. The first time was 7 years ago, when I gave up a high salary offer from a foreign enterprise to join Ethan's small company with a monthly salary of 2,500. I also had to pay 1,000 for our rent. My senior brother was frustrated, talking until his mouth was dry but couldn't change my mind. The second time was at the negotiation table a few days ago, whereas the opponent, he was overwhelmed by me. Afterward, half gratified and half wary, "Lydia, I heard you only get 5,000 a month at Jiang Corporation, come to me, don't let your talent be buried by ungrateful people." I smiled and refused, how could it be buried? That was my husband's company, the empire he and I built over 7 years. The 3rd time was now. I paused for only 3 seconds, told the waiter to bring a bottle of red wine, and readily agreed. "Send the address, I'll start next Tuesday." The other end of the phone was stunned for 2 seconds, then burst into intense laughter. My senior brother, fearing I might regret it, said good and hung up. I smiled, about to put down the phone, when the screen popped up with Ethan's message, "The situation has changed, Rena couldn't wait, so I took her on the plane first. Eat dinner yourself. When I return, I have a surprise for you." Facebook also had a new post from Rena tagging me alone, "Thanks to brother for making my dream come true. As a return, tomorrow I'll treat you to a big meal, hee hee." The accompanying image was Rena holding Ethan's hand, a photo under the Eiffel Tower, identical to the one from 7 years ago. I stared at the photo for 2 seconds, then decisively exited and found my senior brother's chat box. As a gift for joining, do you want that Western Europe cooperation worth 10 billion? The phone was silent for a while, then vibrated crazily. Want. Junior sister, you're too good to your senior brother. Yesterday was your birthday, right? The gift I bought for you should have arrived, remember to pick it up. I was stunned, laughter spilling finally from my throat, growing louder. Yes, yesterday was my birthday. When Ethan watched me drink the mango juice, did he remember it was my birthday? When Ethan was applying a band-aid for Rena, leaving me alone in the hospital, did he remember to give a birthday gift to his wife of 7 years? Probably not. But it doesn't matter. We're getting divorced anyway. Who would want a gift from an ex-husband? After finishing this meal, I didn't rest and devoted myself fully to the Western Europe project. After all, it was something to give to the new employer, it couldn't go wrong. So for the next 2 days, I stayed in the company, with the office lights on all night. The people in the company saw it and whispered in the large group chat without me. What did I say? Director Lydia only earns $5,000 a month, relies on Ethan for food, drink, and everything, how dare she throw a tantrum? If not for her relationship with Ethan, with the company developing so well now, who needs her? I heard that when Ethan started the business, she was the one holding him back, otherwise, the company would have gone public long ago. Without exception, these words were screenshot by Rena and privately sent to me, then she hypocritically advised, Sister Lydia, I know marrying a capable and resourceful financial president like brother Ethan must make you feel very insecure. But I also want to advise you that old women who only work can't attract men, they still prefer young, beautiful, feminine girls like me. Listening to her affected voice message, I smiled. That's fine, tomorrow I'll have HR fire you, so you won't be unable to attract men. After saying that, I directly blocked her and ignored her. 10 minutes later, Ethan's accusatory call came in. On the phone, he was aggressive. Lydia, where did Rena provoke you again? I finally coaxed her to come to Paris for a trip, to forgive your rudeness at the celebration banquet, and now you've made her cry again. Do you feel uncomfortable if you don't cause trouble for a day? Forgive? Who? Me? I found it amusing, printing the drafted divorce agreement while casually asking him, when are you and Rena coming back? Let's talk about the divorce. The breathing on the other end hitched, Ethan's angry tone came through the receiver into my ear. Lydia, are you done? Throwing tantrums and being jealous should have limits. If you make unreasonable trouble again, I'll really get angry. I was stunned and couldn't help laughing out loud. I printed the divorce agreement in black and white, would I still fear your anger? I've signed the divorce agreement and placed it on your desk, remember to look at it when you return. Bang! Ethan kicked the stool away, gnashing his teeth on the phone, fine, don't regret it. The phone hung up with a snap, I shrugged and signed the divorce agreement. The next morning when I woke up, as soon as I opened my phone, I saw Ethan's message. He seemed not to have slept all night, posting a social media update visible to the whole network at 4 a.m. Ethan and Rena standing in front of the hotel floor-to-ceiling window, fingers interlocked. Caption, 7 years of wind and rain, fortunately with you. The comments below accumulated tens of thousands, all asking, finally official. Is this the boss lady Ethan hid for 7 years? Ethan didn't reply but pinned a shoe emoji. Also in the company group chat, Ethan said a group announcement. Effective immediately, Lydia's manager position is replaced by Rena, the Western Europe Cooperation Project is transferred to manager Rena, and tonight's press conference will also be attended by manager Rena in place of Lydia. He knew I worked tirelessly abroad for 39 days for this deal. He knew to secure the cooperation, I organized materials during the day, socialized at night, drinking until I wanted to vomit. But he still did this to force me to compromise and bow down. The phone vibrated, a new message came in from Ethan, you still have a chance to admit your mistake now. I didn't reply, tossed the phone aside, and went to wash up. Has he forgotten that the Western Europe project was single-handedly facilitated by me, and the partners recognize not the company, but me personally? After washing up, I went downstairs to buy breakfast. When I returned, I found all my things thrown out of the office. Water cup, files, and the signed divorce agreement torn in half. The only survivor was our wedding photo with Ethan, carefully placed on the balcony. Rena sat vibrantly in my position, with a provocative face. "Sorry, Sister Lydia, Brother Ethan has already given this office to me. From now on, you'll sit over there." She pointed to the leaky storage room next to the toilet, arrogant. I couldn't be bothered with her and turned to look at Ethan, who had been silent beside her. He seemed not to have slept all night, with bloodshot eyes, but a malicious curve at the corner of his mouth. "Rena is right, I've given the office to her, but if you withdraw the divorce, maybe I can." "No need." I interrupted him, reached for the photo on the balcony, met Ethan's slightly smug gaze, and threw it into the trash bin. "Don't want this either." "You can throw it away too." After saying that, I picked up the computer on the desk and turned to leave, pretending not to see Ethan's reddened eyes from anger. Today is Monday, tomorrow I have to go abroad to start the job, so I need to go back and pack. I didn't go to the evening press conference. At home, as DM Company's manager, I conducted the final communication with the Western Europe partners. At the moment the cooperation was confirmed, I received Ethan's message. "Tonight's press conference, I've invited media for live broadcast. If you don't admit your mistake, the Western Europe project will really have nothing to do with you." I glanced at it and turned on Do Not Disturb for messages. It was about time. I should go catch the plane. At 7 p.m., media arrived one after another. Live broadcast across the city. Rena spent a fortune hiring a celebrity makeup artist, dressed meticulously, holding Ethan's arm with a brilliant smile. Ethan wore a gray suit, with an outstanding temperament, but his eyes anxiously scanned each person below the stage. Why hasn't she come yet? This thought flashed in Ethan's mind, and the original excitement was gradually replaced by unease. But the press conference had to proceed. Ethan pursed his lips and took the microphone. "Hello everyone, I am Ethan, president of Jian Group. Today's press conference theme is the Victoria project reached between our company and GK Group. This project." Wait. A reporter with an International Finance Channel badge on his chest suddenly stood up. "Ethan, are you sure it's the Victoria project?" Ethan was stunned. "Of course, this is our company." The assistant rushed onto the stage, whispering sharply into Ethan's ear, "Bad news, Ethan. 1 minute ago, DM Group officially announced that the Victoria project is taken over by DM, and manager Lydia has jumped ship." "What?" Ethan misheard for a moment, his heart startled, unable to believe his ears. What announcing the project ahead means was clear to everyone present, especially to Ethan, who had been in business for so many years. Rena's face turned pale with fright. That was a 10 billion deal. Without this European order, whether the company could sustain itself was questionable, and her dream of being Mrs. Ethan wouldn't end after just one day. She looked at Ethan worriedly, but saw him still stunned in place, unable to say a word. Ethan still couldn't believe that after the divorce, I would be so ruthless to this extent. A reporter in front held a microphone close to his face but still got no answer. He stood there petrified, nearly falling. Over the years, I had always been tolerant of him, so he didn't expect me to be so resolute this time. My birthday had just passed not long ago, and Ethan suddenly recalled the first birthday we spent together in the company many years ago. At that time, everyone had little money, and the company was very rudimentary. He held a cake in the simple office to celebrate my birthday and blow out the candles. He was very good to me then, feeling guilty that for my birthday, he could only give me an ordinary cake and a meal at a nearby restaurant. Seeing his helpless bowed head, I swore that one day, I would lead him and his company to the pinnacle of the industry. I had always been confident in my abilities, and I indeed achieved it. Without me these years, Ethan's company might not have sustained, let alone reached today's scale. But as the company gradually got on track, and he turned from an unknown nobody into a hot catch, he actually forgot whose strength was sustaining this company. Over these years, relying on my efforts, he basked in the limelight outside under Ethan's identity. Everyone praised him for starting from scratch, a business genius. But they didn't know that I, always hidden behind him, was the true helmsman of this company. In the past, I had complained about Ethan not taking me out for social engagements and not making my identity public. But he told me it was because he loved me too much and didn't want any other factors mixed into our relationship. Although I felt his explanation was problematic, I liked him too much and accepted it obsessively. Until Rena appeared as the wife, I realized how ridiculous I had been in the past. It seemed he still didn't understand what losing me meant to him. That's perfect, let him watch all his expectations and hopes over these years turn to nothing, and let him know that with me, he was the center of attention as Ethan, without me, he is nothing. The secretary beside saw Ethan dazed and quickly nudged him, anxiously saying, "Ethan, think of a way, how to explain the European deal issue to the media present. This matter not only concerns the company's interests but also involves the company's capabilities and external image." As soon as the secretary finished speaking, the reporter's inquiries surged like boiling water, hard to control. "Ethan, is the Victoria project really taken over by Jiang Group? Or is there some unspeakable secret in this matter? Ethan, I heard GK got this deal because they poached a core figure from your company, can you explain this?" "Hello Ethan, we received information that you and the resigned manager Lydia have a close relationship, and this Miss Rena beside you is suspected of being the mistress who took over, driving away manager Lydia. Is this true or false?" One after another aggressive questions left Ethan unable to answer. More terrifyingly, the issues and insider information the reporters knew were not only sharp but true. With everyone talking at once, he had no chance to explain. Moreover, I had done this too ruthlessly. To salvage the reputation now, there was no other way except to bring me back to the company to continue handling the Victoria case. With the help of secretaries and security, Ethan and his group fled in disarray from the press conference site and sat in the backstage lounge. The entire Jiang Corporation was in chaos. Not only dealing with today's mess but also busy with PR to suppress hot searches. But the incident happened too suddenly, more and more people discussed it, impossible to suppress. At the same time, DM kept adding fuel to the fire, introducing their close cooperation with GK on the Victoria project. In addition, due to Rena's high-profile announcement, online speculations about our three-way relationship emerged endlessly. A large part believed Rena was the mistress who forced me away, and Ethan was the scumbag who abandoned his chaff wife after becoming rich. Such an external image was undoubtedly a fatal blow to a company not yet too large. But at this moment, Ethan seemed unable to hear the voices of people around him. His fingers gripped the phone tightly, as if to crush it. Upon closer look, the half-dark screen was continuously dialing the same number, but that number remained unreachable until the phone's battery was completely drained. Ethan realized his number had been blocked by me. He didn't restrain his violent emotions and smashed the phone on the ground, shattering it into pieces. Ignoring the secretary still calling to remove hot searches, he snatched the phone from his hand and continued dialing my number, first, second, third time, still fruitless. Finally, it was a barrage of text attacks. "Lydia, where are you now? The European project has always been your responsibility. What exactly is going on? Do you want to kill me? Stop messing around, no matter what, I won't agree to divorce you. Obediently return to my side and handle these matters. We're husband and wife meant to be together for life, have you forgotten?" One text after another received no response. Ethan signaled his subordinate to continue calling, but when called again, my phone was turned off. The secretary ruefully showed him the red dial button on the phone and said, "Boss, Sister Lydia has turned off her phone." After saying that, Ethan's face darkened instantly, becoming very ugly. But more fatally, even at this point, things hadn't reached the truly irreparable stage. Soon another secretary assistant rushed in anxiously from outside, telling Ethan particularly bad news. "Ethan, bad news, manager Lydia posted your divorce agreement on Facebook, and what?" Ethan asked with a livid face. "And manager Rena's post on Facebook that day, 7 years of wind and rain, fortunately with you." The secretary assistant's voice grew smaller until inaudible, but everyone understood the meaning. It was then that Rena seemed to wake from a dream, walking over from the corner, pulling the secretary assistant, half questioning, half scolding. "What did you say? Lydia, that bitch, who allowed her to do this?" Since Rena had the courage to be someone's mistress, she knew that once exposed, she could be drowned in the saliva of onlookers, and my Facebook post was tantamount to nailing this adulterous pair. So, my taking away the Victoria project, in the eyes of the world, would not be seen as ruthless but rather as smart and vengeful. As soon as the words fell, Rena was slapped by Ethan. The slap was heavy, her face swelled instantly, and she fell to the ground, unable to believe Ethan really hit her. "Who allowed you to curse her?" "Lydia is my wife, what are you?" Ethan thought of the countless times in the past when I forgave after being disheartened, then regretted in his heart neglecting me during those days, but he felt that no matter what happened, I still loved him, so he secretly vowed in his heart that he would chase me back, win my heart again. He wouldn't agree to divorce me, and everything in the past was just a small interlude in our lives. After going abroad, I did well at GK Company. My senior brother appreciated me and took me on many projects. Plus, when I switched jobs, I came with a dowry, so other executives who had complaints about my parachuting in couldn't say anything. Here, work effort and income are proportional, and I no longer have to do 50 million worth of work for a 5,000 salary. I felt very at ease. With busy work, days became fulfilling, and I gradually forgot past events, no longer resenting Ethan and Rena, or rather, too lazy to bother. But I didn't expect that such carefree days didn't last long before being interrupted by an uninvited guest. Those days were approaching autumn. The sycamore trees at the company entrance shed leaves one after another. Ethan's tall, straight, and extremely familiar figure stood in the gentle European wind. The familiar back showed he had been physically and mentally exhausted in recent months, with no mind for grooming. He looked haggard overall and much older. I had no mood to entangle with him, even less to talk, wanting to pretend not to know him and slip away quietly, but unfortunately failed. Seeing me approach, Ethan immediately grabbed my hand, looking at me with pleading eyes, asking to talk. I shook off his hand and said indifferently, "What is there to talk about between us?" 10 minutes, Ethan carefully begged me. "Lydia, in my life, I've never begged anyone. Consider this me begging you, give me 10 minutes, okay?" Seeing his pitiful appearance, my heart couldn't help but soften a bit. We struggled together in China for years, closing one deal after another, and he actually said he's never begged anyone. How ironic. Yes, the company's past profits, one contract after another, all relied on me finding connections, toasting at tables until stomach cramps, staying up late overtime to make plans and close deals. He never needed to pay anything, so how could he beg anyone? I suddenly became curious about what hurtful words could come from his mouth that can't spit ivory, so I no longer tried to break free from his hand but found a nearby cafe, timing with a stopwatch, waiting for the upcoming 10 minutes. "Lydia, where have you been during this time? Do you know I've been looking for you for so long?" Ethan still spoke sweet words as before, one said after another. When I publicly jumped ship with the Victoria case, even a fool would know where I was, let alone him. To show his deep affection, he really went to all lengths. I sneered, raised my hand to check my watch, and said, "If all you're going to say is this nonsense, I think we don't need to waste another 8 minutes. Ethan was choked and somewhat speechless. He said ruefully, "Lydia, there's no need for us to be so confrontational. I really looked for you a long time during this period. You left too suddenly, I had no preparation. Couples argue at the head of the bed and reconcile at the foot. I haven't done anything to wrong you. Why make things so absolute and insist on divorcing me? Even if you must divorce, you at least have to give me a reason, right? I don't believe it's because of Rena. Wasn't it just a joke not long ago? If you don't like it, I'll fire her when I go back, so you'll never see her again, okay? Or is it really for that European deal? If so, then After so many years of marriage, he still didn't understand me at all. I didn't want to hear his speculations anymore and directly interrupted him, getting to the point. "Ethan, do you remember what I said to you on our wedding day?" He frowned and tried hard to recall for a long time but still failed. As expected, I shouldn't have hoped he would remember what I said that day. Indeed, it was just a mango, just a joke. I was overreacting, and I couldn't take a joke. But Ethan, the person who hurts me can be anyone in this world, except you. Seeing me silent for a long time, he seemed to remember something and suddenly realized, you can't be angry just because of that cup of mango juice. Is it necessary? It's just a cup of mango juice. If you don't drink it, we won't play such jokes next time, and besides, I saw that day you weren't allergic, or is it Rena you mind? Ethan carelessly tore at my scars. I sat there staring at him for a long time, finally deflated, leaned back in the chair, and told him in a voice I myself thought was perhaps calm, when I was little, my dad cheated, brought the other woman home, that woman gave me a mango. Mangoes weren't common then, I found it novel, so I sat on the sofa eating it. Mom came home, saw the mango in my hand, said nothing, and jumped from the windowsill. Ethan opened his mouth, his expression turning from shock to speechlessness. You said it was just a joke, for you it is, but not for me, so can I go now? I stood up to leave. Ethan knew that if he let me go this time, there would be no more chances between us, so he blocked my path again. Sorry, Lydia, I didn't know, I was wrong in the past. Forgive me, okay? I deserve to die, hit me, hit me. He grabbed my hand, hitting himself with it again and again. Enraged by his pulling, I unhesitatingly gave him a resounding slap and yelled, have you made enough fuss? I said these not to make you apologize, but to tell you that it's over between us. Mango is my bottom line, you touched my bottom line for Rena, so there's no possibility between us anymore, do you understand? But he seemed truly unable to understand, saying extremely sadly, so you hate me that much, hate to the point of taking away Victoria, making the Jiang corporation we founded together go bankrupt, to revenge me, right? You're overthinking. Victoria was originally my responsibility, taking my own thing is only natural, don't entangle me anymore. Ethan couldn't listen to my words, he was like his soul had left his body, murmuring, if I don't mind you taking Victoria, if there was no Rena, and no. His voice suddenly became hoarse, know that mango that day, would you return to my side? If, where are there so many ifs in the world? I broke free from his hand and resolutely said, no. After saying that, I left the cafe, not knowing the expression of the person behind me. After that day, Ethan always came to the company to entangle me, reluctant to return home. My senior brother worried I might go back to him, brainwashing me daily, saying he must be for that 10 billion project, not truly loving me, telling me not to eat the grass, and he would help drive away this rotten peach blossom. Of course, I knew my senior brother was for my good, and the Victoria cooperation between the two companies had already started, with progress over half. Even if I were a novice who knew nothing, I couldn't run away at this time. I told my senior brother, rest assured, I won't go with him. He looked at me suspiciously, not necessarily, back then you helped him for so many years with a 5,000 salary, what if you run away? I smiled faintly and didn't respond. Back then was back then, now is now. Fortunately, Ethan wasn't a very persistent person, he entangled me for a long time, seeing I never changed my mind, knowing some things couldn't be forced, finally chose to return home dejectedly. And Rena returned to his side on the same day he returned home. Someone who dared to take my job position certainly didn't know how important I was to the company, she thought even without me, Ethan could run the company, still dreaming of becoming Mrs. Jiang, longing to marry into wealth, so at the first moment of his return, she diligently ran to his side. Ethan, don't be sad for unworthy people anymore, with me, even without the project in her hands, we can definitely sustain the company. You can't slack off, tomorrow we'll go negotiate cooperation. You need to let that woman know how right your choice of me is. Ethan was dizzy from her inexplicably ignited fighting spirit and forgot his own capabilities. Having lived off others for so long, he really thought he had some ability and could continue being his Ethan. But he forgot that businessmen care most about credibility. Not securing the Victoria project was already unfortunate, my initial exposure of his domestic affair and Rena as mistress added insult to injury, stinking his company and himself in the industry, who would dare cooperate with him. At the beginning, Rena was quite spirited, overtime researching plans while secretly stalking my performance abroad. But as my work flourished, her heart became more unbalanced and jealous. Finally, in the third month when Jiang couldn't pay salaries and was robbing Peter to pay Paul, she couldn't hold back and exploded. Do you fucking know how to run a company? If this continues, the company will go bankrupt sooner or later, then forget about being Mrs. Ethan, I think I'll have to beg on the streets with you. Ethan couldn't understand the professional terms popping up on the computer anyway. Hearing Rena yell at him made him even angrier. You have the nerve to say me, where do you compare to Lydia? In the past, she never let me worry about such trivial matters, I just needed to sign and stamp the documents, where was it this tiring? The two cursed each other, giving no face. But the company's crisis wouldn't end with their quarrel. Soon, Ethan's company collapsed, and to fill financial holes, they were forcibly evicted by the court from the villa where he and I once lived, as the house was to be auctioned. But even with life turned upside down, they still didn't choose to work steadily and live properly. Instead, to maintain their original luxurious life, they took up gambling and soon squandered all their assets. The last time I heard about them was their arrest for theft and imprisonment for 6 years. The news was reporting the final outcome of these two once prominent figures. As for me, work and life got better day by day. 2 years later, due to my outstanding business abilities in the company, leading a team to close several high-profit cases that were almost impossible, the company promoted me to executive president of DM Group's China region. On the day of official appointment, the company invited many media. Many were the same as those at Ethan's press conference back then. They were interested in my experiences these years and asked many questions, which I answered one by one. The only last reporter asked a question completely unrelated to today's press conference. He said, Miss Lydia, do you know today is the day your ex-husband Mr. Ethan officially goes to prison? Your sudden job switch back then is still debated without conclusion. Would you share with us the love and hate between you and Mr. Ethan? I pondered for a moment and smiled, thankful for everything in the past, and blessings for everything in the future, but the past can only be the past, it's time to turn the page. The reporter didn't ask further. I think past matters end here. I will surely be very happy, increasingly happy.